Welcome to the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast, the #1 resource for automotive sales professionals, managers, and owners to learn how to make money, accumulate wealth, and to all out ball out in the auto industry. And now your hosts, Sean V. Bradley and L.A. Williams.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is L.A. Williams, and I am here on the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast with the millionaire himself, Mr. Sean V. Bradley. What's happening, Sean?
What's up, my peoples?
Man, listen, this is a super exciting episode because, as you can tell, I'm off-site, and we got these two gentlemen who are actually on camera, live. So if you don't know his face, I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. Now, this gentleman, I originally met him. He was working with Cars Direct. He moved on. He was working with True Car. Now he is the president of Build a Brand. This guy is absolutely phenomenal. One of my better friends in the business, man. Mr. Ken Potter. What's up with you, bro?
How are you, my friend? Thank you. It's very kind words.
I'm super excited to be working with you today. So, Sean, kind of kick us off, because since I'm off camera, I want you guys to have the majority of the conversation, and I'll just jump in when necessary.
You know, absolutely. So I've known Ken for almost 20 years. So I'm 42 years old. So I've known this dude for about half my life. So I got to know Ken when I was still on the front lines of dealerships. And remember, I've been out of the dealership world for 15, almost 16 years. So that tells you how long ago. Like, I used to buy leads when he was like, you heard of the web crawler, you know, the web slinger? He was the lead slinger. He was slinging leads like, you know what I mean? And but he's a beast. But I want him to speak about himself because he's got a unique background. LA, do you know my man worked on the nuclear program?
What?
Yeah, so tell the people about this.
Yeah, so I grew up in South Carolina. Went to college for about 6 weeks, 8 weeks, I don't know, something like that. I realized this is probably not a good lifestyle for me because I never really made it in the building. So I knew I needed to do something, and you know, a lot of people in my family were in the military, so I'm like, I'll go in the military. You know, I have great respect for that. And you know, I went in and I took all the tests you do and everything. I'm like, I want the coolest, greatest job you got. Right, and so when they gave it to me, I was like, wow, this seems like the coolest, greatest job there is, which was like programming nuclear weapons, right? Like targeting them where they go, repairing the targeting systems, guns, secret codes, the whole 9 yards. Except they didn't tell me they're really only located in Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming, and that's where I'd have to go for 20 years. So that part I didn't know about. And if you've never been to Montana, it's winter for 8 months. But yeah, I did
How long were you doing? How long did you do that
nuclear
for?
weapons. I did that for 4 years active duty, and when I got out, I did it. I was 6 years in the Guard.
So, but all kidding aside, they don't just let any schmuck turn around and touch the nuclear codes,
No,
right?
they don't. No.
Because, so that impresses me right there. Like, if I know a dude personally, like the only person I've ever met in my life that had secret codes to program the nuclear like weapons, is it? What? Just curious. It's totally off topic, but isn't it like got to be a little bit scary though? Like when you come to work, like just
I mean, yes and no, because it's the technology that we worked on. So you got to remember, these were built in the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Right.
So Kennedy built these missiles way back when, right? And so these were the nuclear missiles that we worked on. So it was really old school technology. So it was like going back in time.
Oh wow.
But, you know, I mean, it was still cool. You would drive up to these facilities out in the middle of nowhere. You'd have to, you know, utilize your radio to, you know, let the security forces who are always watching, you know, that you were there on site. And then you'd have to go into this tunnel. And if it was snow, you'd have to dig your way into the tunnel to get into a room to give your little secret codes. And then when you got done with the codes, you had to burn your code, you know.
Really?
Yeah, it was,
and then James Bond shit.
Yeah, it totally was, you know, and except we had this old revolver, you know, I had an old 6-hit revolver. It was like Barney Fife, you know, if I pulled that thing out, I was lucky if it fell apart or not. But yeah, it was totally cool, and it taught me a lot. You know, the military taught me a lot about, you know, growing up and, you know, how you look at things.
But wait a minute. So I get. So you're a nuclear secret agent type thing. I'm dramatizing, and then the natural progression is the car industry. How the hell did that happen, dude?
So well, like, you know, they say, I don't know who said it, but necessity is the creation of, all invention.
Right.
And in my case, I needed to invent some cash, right? So the necessity was I needed to get a job, actually another job. I already had a job, but I went in the car business on the side, if you can do such a thing.
While you were in the military, you worked?
No, after. I got out of the
okay.
military, I had normal jobs,
Okay.
and I'm like, I got to get another job. But my brother was a general manager at a dealership in Florida.
Okay.
And I went to this dealership probably late 80s, and my brother was there. He was, slick back hair, suits and ties, lots of cash, probably doing all sorts of, bad behaviors and illicit things that were going on in the car business back then. But his crew of people he had, who all had lots of cash and nice cars, I literally looked at every one of them and thought to myself, you're the worst salespeople I've ever met in my life, and you're rich, and you're killing it. I should be in this business because I actually think I can help people. So that's what made me want to get in the car business. I thought, wait a minute, if some of these people can do really well and make lots of money, which is the cool thing about the car business, right? The car business is we don't care who you are, what walk of life you come from, where you come from, what you believe, what you look like, what you think. If you hustle, and you do that grind we all do of 12, 15, 18 hours a day, and you're committed to the process, it'll work. It'll simply work, and you'll make money. And fast forward to today, it's the same story.
How long did you work on the front line selling cars, being a manager?
So I sold cars for probably a year
Okay.
before I became a sales manager.
Okay.
And I got my sales manager job, and how they created it was we had grown enough to where the 3 sales teams were going to go to 4. And so the 3 sales managers got to give me 2 of their people off of their team to create my team. Now, as you can imagine, they're not giving me number 1 and number 2 on the team. I got number 8, 9, 10, or 11, which was kind of cool because, it was me and these 6 people plus 3 or 4 new ones I had. We were kind of like the Bad News Bears of the Misfits, right? So we sat in a room, we're like, all right, let's figure out how we kick all of their butts. And, so the car business was always fun for me. I never looked at it like a job. That's the cool thing. I know you were in the military. That's how it was. The car business isn't like a job, dude. It's just, these people, and we come to work every day. We start at 0 every month. It's just a cool place to be, I think, and a great way to make a living, an honorable way to make a living too.
Let's transition. So you worked at CarMax.
Yes.
So tell us, because CarMax is a unique situation.
Yep.
So let's go into tell everybody, how long you worked for CarMax, what was your role there, and why is CarMax different from a traditional car dealership?
So I started at CarMax. That's where I got my start.
Ooh, okay.
I started selling cars there part-time. They have a part-time role. That's when I needed the extra money. I couldn't commit to going to work for in my brother's crew. They just weren't my kind of people. But so I took this part-time job, and I quickly became the number 1 part-time salesperson in the company. There was 5 stores at the time, and CarMax had a rule that if you wanted to become a manager in their store, you had to be a full-time salesperson, sell a certain amount of cars, prove your worth, and you could work your way into that. And so I wasn't about to give up my full-time job that I had to pursue this thing, until somebody came and offered me a new full-time job. So I was selling copiers and business paper and stuff like that to B2B, and I got this company that wanted me to come work for them. So the money was substantial enough where I was going to give up my side hustle of selling cars. And so when I went and I told the people at CarMax, hey, I'm going to quit, they were like, well, why don't you come work for us full-time? And so I'm like, well, is that a possibility? And, to me, I loved what they were doing, and the newness of it and how they were approaching the business. People loved it when they walked in. First off, you had to park your car and walk in the store and go in and talk to somebody, right? Which that's a big commitment back then for customers. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, let me park my car and go in this place. But so I love the experience. I never even once thought to ask them about what the money was, because the money was half of what I was making at the first job I had. So. But they had a rule, and you had to be the salesperson. So I said, I can't do it. So they actually waived the rule for me.
Oh, wow.
They waived the rule for me, and I became a sales manager. And then the funny part was they actually had to waive another rule for me because they didn't realize that I didn't have a college degree. And CarMax had, at that time, only hired people like with college degrees who ran retail organizations.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So my boss fought really hard for me and said, look, this guy has sold a ton of cars, and we think he can do the job. So I got this sales manager job, and
full time.
full-time, quit my other job, made half the money, but loved the experience. I took these people, these band of misfits that I talked about, we killed it. We literally killed it. Why? Because we just changed sort of how all the other managers operated. The other managers looked at their business like, I will tell the salespeople what they're doing wrong, or I will sit down with them and counsel them once a month, and should they need help with a transaction, they can come and find me. I reversed that, right? I didn't need to go sit in my office and look at papers. So, what I did is I just stood out front. So as these customers came in, I stood out front at the point and greeted the customer with the sales rep. How are you? Sean's going to take great care of you. And when the customer went out on the lot, because we had all these tracking mechanisms, which is CarMax's genius. So the salesperson has a module on them. And when you go get in a car, I'll know you're with Sean, and I know which cars you took on test drive. I know when you come back from a test drive. So when you come back from a test drive, I can easily walk out there and talk to you. I know the second, I can track you where you're at. Oh, there they are. They pulled the car back in. Let me go talk to Sean, right? And so then it was an easy transition to, hey, would you like to see payments, whatever. And then I would sit with the customer or sit with the sales rep, and it was, that's where I spent my time. I just stayed on the floor with these sales reps. I was involved with their transactions, and I helped them sell cars.
Let me just jump in. There's a lot of nuggets here.
Yeah.
Couple things. One, what's difference from CarMax versus like a traditional dealership? First of all, CarMax is an independent group, correct?
Yep.
It's independent, and if I'm correct also, like at least now, lately, they don't, for like years and years, they don't ever advertise that they sell cars, they advertise that they buy cars, correct?
Right.
Can you talk about that? Because this is really
Right.
unique and it's really powerful. So talk to the audience about just what makes CarMax different and special philosophical wise.
So I think it's funny, as an insider, being a CarMax insider, CarMax is a company that buys cars well. That's what they are, right? People look at them and say, hey, you sell cars. They're actually a company that just buys cars well. So they have a science to how they buy cars. They have a whole team of people who buy cars. They're the same people who appraise the cars. And the concept was always, if we could buy the cars the right way and figure out how to sell cars, because it took us a while to figure out how to sell them, then because it's one price and they sell the cars for a good value and they make good money, I can turn around and pay more for the cars.
Right.
Therefore, I can get the best cars. So their whole concept has been about buying cars first. And so I've told this to a lot of people. Like there's a lot of trade-in widgets out there now, and all these people do these different things. And everyone now says that we buy cars, right? I always tell dealers this: you can only sell as many cars as you have. If you want to sell more cars, you need to buy more cars.
Right.
Right? And you should be buying cars from your customers. So CarMax's really big secret sauce is they measure. So they have a goal of how many cars they need to buy from their own customers through the trade-in lane. Right? No dealer I know of has that. We measure everything. We measure every stat you can imagine, but no dealer has said to their, manager, okay, we're going to get 150 people to come in and do an appraisal this month, we must buy 85 of those cars, right? Because if you thought about it from that perspective and said, I'm going to buy those 85 cars, now that is a way faster way to get the inventory onto the lot and to sell it quicker. Plus, it's good inventory that you want, that you've laid your eyes on. That's ultimately their secret. They track and measure that one missing component of the trade-in process, right? And they build value into that, right? So once you have this upfront process, which we all now have, anyone can find a price anywhere, right? CarMax still has the ability to sell their cars for more than they do other people. Why? It's just the experience.
Right.
People are willing. We've always said this, you and I have always said, price is only an issue in absence of value. And it's a heavy value proposition.
LA?
Absolutely. That's the comment that we all got to understand, and most people don't. They always make price the number one challenge. So, man, that was beautiful stuff. All right, so because I kind of like that you mentioned you sold cars for a year and then you were a manager and the differences, and we like to ask people, what is the difference? How do you make money as a salesperson versus how do you make money as a manager?
Ooh, great question.
Yeah, it is. I'll tell you, it's interesting. So my son is in the car business.
And my daughter is.
Like your daughter, yep. He's doing really well. He's been in the car business about a year. He's doing really well. And the one thing that I tried to impress upon him And it took me a while to learn this because we all go through, right? It's for whatever reason, selling cars is like gambling. The first time you do it, you win, right? You win. Yeah. It's like they know, let him win now because he'll get all his money later on. Same thing to car business. You come out, you're enthusiastic, you follow the process, you sell a bunch of cars the first month number 2 or month number 3, you're struggling and you don't know what the hell's going on. Yeah. And for me, it was the money part, right? Because I make good money selling these cars part-time. I was selling 10, 12 cars a month part-time.
That's crazy.
Making a couple grand a month part-time. And I'm like, wow, this is great money to have, right? And what I let happen is I focused on the money instead of focusing on the process, right? Ooh. So once some, elderly car statesman pulled me off to the side and said, son, let me tell you what you're doing wrong, right? And of course I listened to him, right? Because I'm always willing to take feedback, but he's like, you need to focus on the process. The money comes after you earn the right to ask for the sale, but you got to earn the right up front. You can't just go for the sale to get the money. And that whole concept changed how I did everything. It changed how I helped my salespeople. It changed how I managed, right? And I always try to instill in everybody, we all need money. We are all money motivated and money driven. But if you can understand the path that gets you to the money is what you need to focus on rather than the money, you will get the money. That's what I believe. And so for me, once I had my mentality around that, I didn't look at every customer of like, how can I make money on you? I looked at every customer from the perspective of, you got to go through 10 to get to 1. How do I treat all 10 of these people like I'm earning their money? And then I'll eventually get it. And I applied the same thing to my team. I looked at my team and I applied it and I'm like, how do I help you make money? How do I help you personally enrich your life?
I got to tell you, that's what the problem I find is that most managers are too busy on the fucking ivory tower of the dealership desking deals, and I talk to a lot of people, and the desk managers are not that important like they used to be. It's not that hard to desk a deal. What's hard is building out your team, providing all your people with the right resources, the support, the training, the accountability, emotionally, technology-wise, to be successful. To answer LA's question, I'm going to answer it directly. I believe that the way that a manager makes money is by helping each and every person on their team achieve maximum effectiveness and maximum potential. Because only synergistically, because a sales manager usually gets paid on a percentage of their team or a percentage of the showroom floor. And so again, if you've got 5 or 8 or 10 people, even if you're making good money, but it's like, but 3 or 4 people are carrying everybody else, it doesn't matter how much money you're making. It's the money that you're not making because you still have 3 or 4 or more people that are not, pulling their own weight. So right. I don't see enough. I could be wrong. You're all over the country too. Do you really believe in 2019 that the majority, that means more than 51% of the managers out there really manage their people?
I think we've changed the role in the industry, and I don't know how we got to there, but if you look at what the managers do now, there's been so much great technology that's came into the marketplace for managers that it's overwhelmed them. So now, not only do you have to review all the CRM tasks and look at it, you got to look at all the vAuto stuff, and you got to look at, there's so many different things you have to look at. You got to take in lease cars. We used to have, obviously the money used to be different. The dealership had more money to spend, and I think as margins have decreased, the manager and support teams have decreased, and more has gone on to the manager. So more junk has gone on to the manager, and now they've gravitated away from helping people. I don't think the answer is no. The majority of managers don't directly day-to-day help people because they're doing their other tasks. And so for me, that's how I was successful. I sat down with people. The one guy on my team who I got from these people who continued to struggle with me, everyone else is flourishing, this guy is struggling, I literally had to say to him, dude, what is important to you in your life? Right? And so it's interesting. There's a guy had a great story. He came from a zoo background. Okay, so this guy and his wife,
nuclear secret code guy, the zoo guy.
Yeah,
I mean, God bless our industry.
For sure. So him and his wife, he met her at this zoo. He worked at like this zoo together, and they took care of the animals. They did all this stuff, and so what happened? He just couldn't relate to people. The guy couldn't really relate to a ton of people. So I found out what's important to him. And what's important to him is he still does this zoo work. And him and his wife want to be involved with this. And they want to rescue animals. And they want to do all this stuff on their own. And I'm like, okay, well, what's keeping you from that? Money. Okay, great. You're here now. focus on what's in front of you, and you're here now, right? Because he was telling me maybe I'll switch industry, okay? You're going to have the same problem, you go somewhere else. So let's focus on what you have here now, and let's help you. And what we actually did with this guy, I still do now with everybody, and I tell this to people, is we built what I call a playbook, right? So he struggled with objections that customers would give him, and he didn't know how to overcome them. So I'm like, okay, here's what you do. From now on, if I'm not right there with you, which I couldn't be with him 100% of the time, I want you to write them down. And this actually led to what I think was my genius moment as a manager. Before my team hit the floor every day, we had a meeting. It was just me and my team in a room. We all showed up at the same time, and what we discussed is every person's objections they heard from the customers the previous day. Ooh. We wrote all these objections down in a playbook, right? With the thought process of, if I heard one objection, somebody else can learn from it, or somebody else can tell me how they can overcome it. And what we ended up creating was we created this playbook of objections that we all had answers to, that we all knew. And the other thing we did was tell us a success story. How did you sell that customer? So we literally talked every day about, here were my successes, here were my objections, and as a group, we all talked about them. And that's what made us all better together.
That's freaking strong.
And so I know people who still at CarMax in this day who are using this playbook mentality. And that's ultimately what you do. If you think about it from a sports perspective, they do a tremendous amount of film before and after the game, right? You can't just look, you can't prepare yourself. We do a lot of preparation in the car business, but we don't necessarily go back and do a lot of, okay, what went wrong, what did well? And this is what the managers used to do. So that's missing. So the salespeople have to do this themselves. You literally have to have a resource or, some sort of access to great training that can teach you, okay, here's where I've been struggling. Where are my resources? What are the answers? So
that's crazy. LA, you want to comment on that?
That's phenomenal. I would totally recommend people doing that. And that's actually part of what I do while phone training. I'm always talking about objections and how to handle it. And then with success stories,
I love that.
With my most successful people, I'm like, okay, how did you handle that situation? And I'm always getting field intelligence. That's one of the keys.
Okay, so I want to transition because I want Ella to hear this next part. So this is amazing. I want to fast forward that you worked for a $4 billion company. Cars Direct's owned by Internet Brands.
Yep.
And then you also work for, TrueCar. That's a publicly traded company. Can you tell me the approximate valuation of TrueCar when you were there?
1.5 billion, 2 billion, somewhere in there.
So it's safe to say that you worked for multiple billion-dollar companies.
Correct. CarMax as well.
Okay, CarMax as well. Yeah. Okay, so you worked for three pretty much back-to-back multi-billion-dollar companies.
Correct.
Okay, and you were senior vice president or vice president for these companies, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going somewhere with this, and you're the first person I've interviewed in this question line because you have a unique background from both sides. So you've seen, maybe not in your bank account, but in the financials that are coming through, hundreds of millions of dollars.
For sure.
Look in the camera and say that you've had, hundreds of millions of dollars of responsibility coming through your accounts or your clients.
For sure. The whole P&L at Cars Direct I had.
And approximately that was like $1 billion worth of shit, right?
The valuation of the company was, but there was a point in time when I showed up at CarsDirect.com, we were losing $11 million a month. $11 million a month in a loss.
Right.
And within a year and a half, by finding the right group of people and the right mentality,
led by the right man,
having a great team, we turned that around and we were making money every month. And ultimately, that's what led to where the company is today. Now, they do many other things outside of auto, but that's the cool thing I think about the car business, right? I'm a car guy. I'm a high school graduate car guy
working
ran
for billion-dollar companies.
Ooh.
Tony Ann Fardette is a part-time receptionist to running the business development of a $1.1 billion group. So that's my point, is that this is the Millionaire Podcast, and the whole purpose of this is to really let the audience know that there is so much money in this industry. So let's put it all together. In your opinion, between the car sales, the gross, like from all the dealerships, there's 16,500 franchise dealerships. So on all car sales, on all fixed ops, on all aftermarket, okay, so like car dealership side of things. Then when we talk about vendors, all the lead source providers, all the technologies, all the bullshit, how much money do you think annually the automotive industry generates from every possible side?
It has to be in the hundreds of billions, if not $1 trillion.
I would concur. So that's the thing, is that, folks, if you're listening to this, we are in a industry that's hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars, or even $1 trillion when it comes down to it. Not just the sales, but all the supporting technology and resources that go to car dealerships. So with that being said, here's now, watch the anticlimactic gut punch. We just said that, but what breaks my heart is there are people that are in this industry that I can't make any money, or I sell 9 cars, or it's fucking like it's the 26th of the month and it's February, there's 28 days, and they got 5 cars out for the month. How does that feel? Like you came from being like just a high school graduate to being a VP of billion-dollar companies, making more money, I would assume, in the automotive industry than you did on the nuclear program. Am I correct?
Yeah, quite a bit. I think
Quite a
I
bit
made
more.
$800 a month.
There you go. And so that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
What is your feedback to the salespeople and even managers out there that say that, oh, you can't make money selling cars, there's no money in car sales?
So the cool thing about the car business, and everyone knows this in the car business, is you start at 0 every month. Mm-hmm. So you, at some point in time, are a 0 every month.
Yep.
Now, I think you have to apply that same mentality to the 26th of the month or the 14th of the month if you're struggling, right? You can't, I've seen a lot of people who are like, well, it's 26, I'm just not going to make my month, I'm just going to let it slide and I'm going to pick up. No, you need to start every day like you're a 0. I think if you applied that mentality of like, today I'm at 0 and I need to do something today. So I've met a lot of smart people in the car business from Roger Penske personally going to the Indianapolis 500 with him to, a brand new person in Chicago. I met a brand new person in Chicago who primarily spoke Polish but needed to make some money and was trying to sell some cars, right? And both of these people had the same level of commitment, from the guy at the top of the game to the one all the way at the bottom, which is, I need to do something today to help myself, right? And so it's easier said than done, but you always have to continually forget yesterday. It's like a baseball player. If you think of the greatest baseball player in the history, or whoever it is, maybe hit 3 something, right? Hit 3 out of 10. That's the greatest ever,
right?
Average is 2 out of 10.
Right.
So you're going to have a lot of no's, and you're going to have a lot of negativity, and you're going to have a lot of objections, but you literally have to say to yourself, today's a new day. Today's a 0. Today I start over. You have to forget yesterday and start over. So the thing to me is, it's a journey, right? Like life, it's a journey. You need to live every day. You can't just say, I want to be at the end of the journey. Right. I want to go there. You have to live every day to get there. And so that is super important, starting with the end in mind of where you want to be. Maybe you say, I want to be a manager. Maybe I want to be an F&I. I think my son's going to go down the F&I path. I told him, that's hard, dude. That's really hard. Maybe you want to be on the vendor side, right? Most of the most successful vendor people came from within the dealership. Why? Because we know how to talk and walk the walk.
Absolutely.
On one aspect, I literally, depending on who you are, like I have a really close friend of mine in Arizona who's been in the car business the whole time, and I've told him many times, hey, you should go on the vendor side. And he's like, I love you, but
vendor's
vendor. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, dude, every time I talk to you, tell me about these new companies coming in the marketplace. Shouldn't that tell you that, hey, I should just call one of these new companies because I can help them out?
Right.
So there's a tremendous amount you can do. Whatever your passion is, I think you should obviously start with the end in mind, but have a passion for that. But just understand, you're at 0 every day. Every day you show up to work, you're at 0. And I think if you can go with that mentality, you can figure out a way to get past some of that stuff.
All right, because you know me, that sounds great, but I need deeper. Dude, you were a freaking manager, you were executive. That's kind of like touchy-feely, transcendental shit. I get it. I agree, okay? But let's say there's people that are listening to this desperate because they have cheap-ass dealerships that don't invest in training, they don't invest in support. You know what I mean? Remember Danielle from the IS-20G? She did that herself, you know what I mean? So just give tactical, and then I'm going to let LA close this out. So if you're speaking to people that are listening to this podcast, and they're like, I believe I could fly, but where do I start? Not just the emotionally. So they said, okay, I start at 0, now what? Give couple tips, like you're training your salespeople back in the day, what should they do to be able to start building their business within the business? Dude, I'm giving you a fucking monkey layup for Slam and build a brand and stuff in there.
It's
but
so funny
you know what I mean?
getting ready to do the
Yeah,
same
come on,
exact
bro.
thing.
Well, I mean, ultimately,
what do they need to do?
You need to sell yourself. You need to figure out how to sell yourself, how to promote yourself. If you don't have tools, if your dealership isn't giving you tools, if they aren't buying leads, you have social media. You've got lots of different things you can do, right? You can share yourself. You've got a network of friends and family who should be working on your behalf, right? I say this if you said to, women, for example, hey, I really would like to get this kind of purse or those kind of shoes or whatever. They would all say, I know where you can get it from.
Exactly, right.
100%. I bought a really nice watch. I don't have it on today when I got in a previous life. And but I bought it from a guy.
He's scared. He's in Philadelphia. You don't want to get that stripped.
I asked a friend of mine, dude, where'd you get your watch from? Oh, I went and bought a watch from that guy.
Right.
I didn't go to the watch store and the 9 of them in town and grind them out for $100. I wanted to buy from the good experience. That's what you need to be. Why isn't there a car guy or a car girl? There should be. And you could be it. There's a void. So if nothing else, I would look at this like I am going to fill that void. I'm going to push into there. I'm going to promote myself. And I'm going to fill that void. And the last thing I would tell you I want to touch on, I'm not trying to, cause some controversy within dealerships, but if you work at a bad dealership, leave and go to another one. If you believe, like Sean said, and you work hard, you just need to find the right store. Dude,
Absolutely.
There's a store out there for you. My nephew's in the car business, and he worked for a bad dealer. Right? And they didn't support him, and they hazed him, and they treated him badly, but he was able to sell 8 or 10 cars and scrap out a living, and finally he left, right? And he took the leap and he left and went to a different dealership. And when he got to that different dealership, they had training, they supported him, they helped him, and now he's a sales manager and he's doing great. Oh. So you need to get past it's either you or it's somebody else. There's 2 kind of people in life, internalists and externalists. You either blame everybody else for your problems or you accept them for your own. So the first thing you have to do is step up and say, whatever problems you face, I'm going to own them. And once you've done that and you still have the problems, then it's the other people.
That's
right? So if you need to switch dealerships, go switch dealerships. If you need to do that 3 or 4 or 5 times, do that. Find the right people who invest in you because you're the asset. You're a more important asset than the car is, than the building is, than the manufacturer is. The people, the frontline salespeople are the most important asset in this industry, in the trillion-dollar industry.
Wow.
Strong, LA.
Absolutely. And it's so crazy because I guess I can say this, right? Well, it's not confirmed yet, but that's my plan to speak at NADA about that exact same thing. So that was super duper powerful. So let me ask this question because you still didn't kind of go into it. I know Sean gave you the layup, right? But I'm going to re-ask the question. What are the habits of the most successful people at the dealership? What have you heard or seen them do that other people who are, at 9, 10 cars a month are not doing?
So I would say it's time utilization, right? It's understanding who you can talk to and utilizing the time correctly to talk to them, right? So obviously, from our perspective, Build a Brand, we've built a tool to push people to you, right? To create more engagement that you don't have to go out and find. I think the problem that exists out there now is people have to go and find someone to talk to, right? You either stand out front and wait or wait till the BDC gives you somebody, which then you might argue is a no money deal that you didn't want to deal with anyway, or you go through the CRM. You have to create engagement, right? So you have to figure out a way to create engagement from either within your CRM or within your BDC or stand out front or promote yourself. But that's the most important thing. I think the most difference I've seen from successful people to not successful people are time allocation and what you actually do with the engaged time you have.
Wow, that's good stuff. All right, so cool. So you talked about, building a brand. So I want you to talk about, maybe just to kind of shift gears a little bit, where do you get all of this really good information? Do you read a certain book? Is there any kind of books you recommend?
I read a lot of books. It's funny you ask. Prior to the car business, I worked for this guy who made me read a book once a month and give him a book report on it. And I thought, this is the dumbest thing I ever heard of. Right? I got to read a book.
Right.
I'm not in high school anymore. But it was, I think you learn from everybody, and you should learn from everybody. You should learn from every You should learn from your customers, from your managers, even bad ones. You can learn stuff.
So what book do you recommend?
Oh, currently, I don't know. I read a lot of biographies, but from a business book, I like Failing Forward. So we've been talking a lot about people who are not successful. There's a book called Failing Forward. It teaches you how to look at every failure you have as a stepping stone, as opposed to something that pushes you back. It's John Maxwell. It's a great book, Failing Forward. 7 Highly Habits. Obviously, we know that book really well. But just immerse yourself in training, right? If you're watching this video of us here, you obviously have some access to.
We're listening to the
my
podcast.
Friend. Yes. Watch more.
Yes.
Reach out to LA. Reach out
LA
to Sean.
Dub, the Blind Foam Master, Ken Potter, everybody. That's a wrap for this week. And how could they find out more about you?
Just call me.
Give them the number. They're not psychic.
310-895-0824.
And what's the BB on your chest?
Build a brand. It's not Big Baller Brand. I got nothing to do with the shoe company
okay,
that's
no
now
problem.
defunct.
All right, so listen, it's a
Give me an
pleasure.
email address or something.
Yeah, give me an email address.
Ken@buildabrand.com.
Peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you like it, you love it, you want more of it, then don't wait for the next money show. Just go to bradleyondemand.com and take your career to the next level.